when a group of protesters stormed Seattle to stop the meeting of WTO, was going to talk about free trade deals, Mr. Chair, which will eventually lead to further destruction towards the environment, we see that the meeting was halted. But however, what we see in the status quo is the fact that free trade, the main reason why our environment continuously becomes degraded, continues to happen and continues to manifest through TPP and through other means of trade deal. What does this example indicate? It indicates that awareness, even though it was there, it was not sufficient enough in order to make sure that progress continues to happen, in order to make sure that the effective goal of such progressive movement is attained at the end of the day. So we deplore the fact that opening government tries to downplay the notion and importance of awareness by saying that capital is already there. Because in opening opposition, we're gonna show you that we're not debating in a vacuum, that capital is indeed still a matter, ladies and gentlemen, that needs to be discussed in today's debate, ladies and gentlemen. But before proceeding to our constructives, several disclaimers aside from what I just said. We believe that eventually, we do concede that at the end of the day, maybe we will need some certain degree of, radical change inside the system, right? We do therefore concede that if at the end of the day, a certain politician endorses us and believes in our cause, and he wants to make such change, we support that. But as progressive movement, what we're going to do is that we're only going to campaign outside the political system, and at the end of the day, we believe that this is the most strategic way in order to make sure that political concessions will be made by those in power, and by at that time, those in power will be the one who understood us and are able to make sure that our policies will be passed in the more effective way. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, one major point of rebuttal will be addressed to the opening opposition. Look, their whole case merely talks about how we cannot make real policies. We cannot stop companies from doing damages because we're not making regulations. Look, here's the thing, right? Again, we reiterate that awareness is not fully complete, ladies and gentlemen. The fact that most progressive movement talks about, if you climb above 2 degrees Celsius in the next decade, the Earth will not be able to sustain life, ladies and gentlemen. However, the society is still unaware that all of these problems are indeed grave and are unable, even the politicians on power are still unable to see the gravity and make radical changes in regards to this, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we argue that we must work outside the political corridor to ensure that more people understand the gravity of the problem, ladies and gentlemen. Because we should not limit our expression of grievances to political niceties. Because if you tie yourself to political correctness, your true aim will be diluted, ladies and gentlemen. Your goal will need to adapt to these circumstances, and compromises will need to happen, and it will not lead to a better means of making sure that your noble goal of such radical changes will happen. You see how numerous progressive organizations such as WWF are now even in bed with big companies, trying to make their image more nice to the society just because they're using fossil fuel. They're extracting this oil in a manner that's sustainable to the environment. Meanwhile, it's not, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, we can see that at the end of the day, such radical stance needs to be upheld. And even further, my constructive will indicate to you why that's even more important. First, constructive. We argue that we must maintain the political balance by working outside the system. Recognize that progressive movement demands changes from the conventional paradigm, right? We think that what we see right now is that the current political system is exactly entrenched with such conservatism structurally. People who want to maintain their political power, for example, has resulting into an establishment which perpetuates and nurtures the political system which only benefits them. That's why you see the politicians having good relationships and continuously passing policies that benefits companies, for example. As a consequence, we must be the one who constantly oppose how the system is operating, ladies and gentlemen. Look, even liberalism that's entrenched in Democrats and Republicans, ladies and gentlemen, leads to numerous trade deals, which is a loss for environmentalists. It leads to absence of support for reforms in policy department, for example, which results in losses for the African American community. It has meant policies regarding rape law, governing rape laws, which disenfranchises women in Title IX, for example, which is a loss to feminism, ladies and gentlemen. Therefore, as a progressive movement, we must insist that the whole system is actually flawed, and we can do it by, having discussions and continuously campaigning that there's something that's structurally wrong with the system, ladies and gentlemen, and disseminating how we can conduct those changes by exactly portraying the radicality and the gravity of such problem. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, it can only be done outside because first, we manage to create a distinction between us as the people who are noble and those inside the system, who is currently, after this, who is currently why when Bernie saw come and endorsed Hillary, he made many people disappointed, because that shows a stance in which he is in line with the whole establishment, ladies and gentlemen. And we think that that's necessarily something that's principally incorrect, because at the end of the day, you're saying that that system is correct, and it even discredits your own capacity as an organization with the ideologies that you stand for. That's the end of my first argument. So political balance can only happen if you work on such a system. But before
Do
proceeding,
you think it's okay to waste the donations from our member? I mean, what the directions that we get is we only being labeled as a bunch of angry people with no direct benefit toward them.
right, exactly leading to my second constructive, which is, I'm going to argue that it's maintaining accountability to our constituents, right? Because before coming up to that response, we think that most likely the system is already biased to favor certain methods of campaign or certain elites to begin with. That's why even the NC deploringly supported Hillary in many implicit ways, ladies and gentlemen. We contend it's going to be even harder for progressives to be accepted or even work within the system. They're going to be stifled, not being able to speak up, and even worse off, they're going to be forced to compromise, ladies and gentlemen. This is hard. Why? Because we might lose support from people who have, put their lives and put their ideologies to us, who believe that we can become the idealistic manifestation of such ideology, ladies and gentlemen. Not just because we don't make real changes, but at worst, that even if we fail to make such changes, we won't be disappointing the minority who direly depend on us to become such beacon of support. That is why we think, even if they've donated money, ladies and gentlemen, it is to make sure that our cause that is noble is persevered, ladies and gentlemen, and not tainted by any means of political pollution that's actually knocking on our door. That's why you see many people hating Ahok just because he's now siding with Golkar, right? So at the end of the day, what these people want is actually for these politicians, for